Or is it another pre-election scheme to try and divide and rule and take people against?
It's a sensible thing.
Not potential, actual black hole in the public finances going forward. And the IMF just basically put a gigantic arrow in space and said, here you go.
As the election looms, of course, the Conservatives revert to type and start scapegoating immigrants or anyone on the dole or fat people or anyone that they can think of to try and get people divided and arguing with each other. The matter is we need immigration because we have a top-heavy ageing population, the baby boomers, who all had less children. With the invention of better healthcare and contraception, the birth rate has been declining for some time and we have been living longer. So this means that we've got a mushroom population and we need immigration. Also, saying that things are not working because we're full is wrong. Things are not working because the Conservatives brought us austerity and then they did Brexit. And they have been making everything fall apart. And now they want to blame immigration or people who are not able to work for whatever reason that may be. And it's actually them, it's the Conservatives who have failed us. Given that Britain is still reverberating from the details of the blood scandal and how heartbreaking it has been for these victims, many of these people likely are the people that Andrew Pearce is scapegoating who aren't well enough to work. And I was heartened to hear Wes Streeting on Trevor Phillips this weekend when confronted with the immigration issue. He did turn it around very successfully. Have a listen.
Ratcliffe is one of Britain's biggest, wealthiest and most influential business people. And it's been reported that quite a lot of people are coming across from that community to Labour. And you're very pleased about all of that. Now, in this interview, he also expresses some forthright views on immigration, pointing out that he supported Brexit because, as he put it, we cannot cope with the vast numbers of people coming into the United Kingdom who overburden the NHS. Are you sure that's the message that you want projected?
Well, I think we do need to reduce net migration as well as deal with some of the challenges we've got in relation to challenges like small boats.
But he's saying migration is overwhelming overburdening, I beg your pardon, the NHS. That's your...
Well, look, I think you have to look at this in the round as well because, you know, I'm conscious of the fact that we are actually over-reliant on migration to staff the NHS at the moment. So we are taking people from red list countries, countries that by definition have a severe shortage of their own healthcare workers. And the reason we've been recruiting so many people from overseas to work in the NHS is because we haven't been investing in our own homegrown talent. We've actually been turning away thousands of straight-A students from studying medicine at university because of the cap on places. And actually, I think not only is that immoral as far as recruitment from red list countries goes, I think it's unfair to UK students who've been turned away, and I think it's a long-term strategic risk to the NHS because there's a global shortage of healthcare workers now. So we have to be self-sufficient in terms of building, training, drawing on our own homegrown talent. But look, you know, Trevor, the last 75 years, the story of the NHS has run alongside the story of Empire Windrush. Yeah, but and migration's built the NHS as well as...
Before we go into history, what Ratcliffe is basically saying is that there's too much pressure, there's too much demand on the NHS, and one way of reducing that demand is by reducing immigration.
Well, no, I think that there are a whole range of reasons why the NHS is under enormous pressure, not least the catastrophic decisions we've seen throughout the last 14 years of Conservative government. All right. But this is why I think the picture's a bit more complicated than Sir Jim set out, because, you know, migration has also been a huge part of staffing the NHS. And similarly, I see the government is now waging war on international students. Well, what a way to shoot yourself in the foot when it comes to the future of the economy. Forgive me for interrupting you.
Rumours are circulating that Sunak is about to call a snap election in July because the inflation figures have come down close to 2%, and we all know that inflation will go up again in the autumn because of the new Brexit import checks. Anyway, let's hope that the British public don't pay attention to the Conservative culture war trying to blame immigrants and people who need to be on benefits and focus on the Conservative record of failure over the last 14 years.
We do talk about this potential, actual black hole in the public finances going forward, and the IMF just basically put a gigantic arrow in space and said, here you go. Not that popular, possibly, here.
It did exactly that. It thinks the pressure on public service is so immense and that the need to raise public investment is so great that the government in the next parliament is going to really struggle to contain spending. It points out, it calculates that whoever forms the next government after the election is going to face a fiscal black hole, a funding gap, whatever you want to call it, of around £30 billion. That is a very large number. Now, the IMF says, Tom, this could be plugged with tax rises. It recommends the government looking at raising revenues with VAT, capital gains tax and inheritance tax, as you can see there. The government, of course, could reverse the national insurance cut it made recently, adding 4p to national insurance would raise about £20 billion, but even that's unlikely to be quite enough. Alternatively, the IMF says we could look at spending cuts. It suggests scrapping the triple lock on pensions, or the IMF says the government could decide the state should do less by charging for a wider range of public services. Very controversial, very unpopular in an election year. We are not going to see any of these options in any manifesto that Labour or the government, the Tories, publish as it stands. But the message from the IMF today could not be clearer. Whoever wins the next election will probably, Tom, end up spending much more than they are telling you they currently plan to spend. And as a result, it is likely they will raise taxes in a way they are not currently telling you about. We have been warned.
Thanks for supporting Save British Farming. Don't forget to subscribe and comment below. Let us know what you think.